Welcome back, Mindsetters. I hope you're enjoying the show as much as we are. We cannot believe that we actually have 15 minutes left of the show, which is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Nolita's been chatting to me on Twitter. Lady, I'm really enjoying the conversation, and we've got so many people on the Facebook page. We are going to get to your questions in the last 5 minutes. There are quite a few. Scott Malefi, Ashworth, Colofelo, we are listening to you, and we will be getting to your questions soon enough. Big up thanks to Liberty for making the show possible. You guys rock. Without further ado, I'm going to go straight to Dina. Dina, take it away.
Yes, everybody, we left off with trying to sketch cos 2x within a given domain, and we were also looking at the graph of 1 plus sine x and how to sketch both of those on the same system of axes. So let's go back and recap. We had worked out that the period of cos 2x would be 180. So we're going to plot every 45 degrees. So we had an overview of what that's doing, which means that we're now going to repeat that. So it's going to go in 45s all the way to 360 degrees. And it's going to go, and it's going to go, etc. But now we're dealing with a domain between 180 and 360, which means I'm only going to show that portion of the graph. I'm not going to show that portion. So I'm going to start at 180, and I'm going to go 45 degrees in order to get that graph. And I'm going to do the same thing for the 1 plus sine x. So let's do the cos graph first. So we'll do the cos in green. Here's our cos 2x. And seeing that we are plotting every 45, you need to make these large enough, because in your final grade 12 exam, your work is going to be marked not by your teacher, but by somebody else. You've got to make it clear as to what you're doing. So there's my cos graph. Period is 180 degrees. And we now need to add this graph here onto that, where we've already worked out that for a 0, a 90, a 180, a 270, and a 360 would be a 1 plus that. So that should have been a 1. That should have been a 2. That should have been a 1. That should have been a 0. And that should have been a 1. So if we go from 180 to 360, we're going to be plotting a 1 at 180 degrees. Then we're going to be plotting a 0, and then we're going to be plotting a 1 over here, and it's then going to go up to 2, so it's coming from a 2, and it's going to go down there. So it's doing that, your sine graph, because it's going to go up to 2 as a maximum, and this one's also going to go up to 2, and it's going to come down, because it's been shifted up by 1 unit. So my yellow graph would be the F graph, and this graph here would be my G graph. Make sure that you've labeled it accurately as well. So if I continued with my sine curve, I would plot that at 90, it needed to be a 2, and then it's coming back to a 1, so that your sine graph is above that axis of the angle axis. Okay, so that is a type of a question that you could actually make up yourselves. We've just added 1 onto sine and said, right, let's have a look at what it looks like with cos 2x. But the most used, or the most asked questions are always, what does sine 2x look like? What does cos 3x look like? And so you could draw up your own combinations of changing the period and changing a vertical translation, and just have fun with your friends and say, okay, I challenge you to sketch these two. What do they look like? And you draw them as well, and see if you both agree. So it's one of those sections that you don't have to wait for your teacher to give you a question. You can make them up yourself as you go along. Okay, so let's just see on our other page what we have. Okay, that's a good one. I'm going to see whether you can tell me what is the period of a minus 2 sine x graph, and what is the range of, and a period and the range of both of those graphs. And this should have degrees on there. And maybe you can sketch those, and there's a domain that's given. So we could sketch, and you can sketch these. Sketch for x from minus 180 to 180. Okay, I'll leave that up there for those of you who want to try that out. So while we're doing that, while you're thinking about that, we can be answering some questions. Indy?
Okay, let's have a look here. There's a few of them. Let me have a look. Okay, this one is from Zwiabuya. Zwiabuya. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. I'm sure that I will learn it by the end of the show. I'll be saying it perfectly. So they want to know, how do I find the range and the domain? And I know a few other mindsetters have asked this, but maybe we can speed through it quick.
Okay, range and domain,
Yeah.
not range and period.
This one says range and domain.
Okay. The domain you don't have to work out because your graphs work from negative infinity to infinity degrees. So your domain is for both the parent graphs of parent graphs or any other graph would just be infinity. What happens usually is that you'll be given a domain. They'll say, please sketch for these x values. So they are chopping that domain to a prescribed set of values that you've got to work in. So the domain is not something that you work out. The domain is something that you're usually given. The range, however, remember what the definition of range is. It's all the y values that that graph can have. So why not draw a picture and then determine what's my smallest y value, what's my largest y value. So to determine a range is always the question of defining that word range. So it's find the y values of each graph. So if I drew this graph over here, for example, and I said to you, that went down there, and I said that this value here was 2 and this value here was negative 2, then what is the range? The range are all the values from smallest to largest, because the graph doesn't go above those. So the range are all the y values, smallest to largest. Nothing below, nothing above. So that's how you would find the range. I would sketch it first and then just read it off the graph.
Okay, let's see what else we have here. I think that this might have been from an earlier question. Okay, this one's from Colafelo, and she asks, do we always divide 360 by the given? She says cos 2x and cos 3x.
Okay, good question. Just to recap on what is the period of cos 2x, what is the period of cos 3x, what is the period of y equals cos a half x. Okay. The question that you asked was, will we always divide by the given? Absolutely. It's the given that's important. So knowing the period of your parent graph, the period of the parent graph here would be 360 divided by, as you said, the given, which is 2. So this given over here is what you divide by. The period over here is 360, parent graph is 360 divided by 3, which is given. So the period here is 120 degrees. And therefore this graph, I'm going to plot every 120 divided by 4, because there's 4 quadrant angles, I'm going to plot every 30 degrees. And this one, the period, is 360 divided by a half, which would give us a period of 720. So here I'm going to be plotting every 180 degrees. I'm going to be plotting values there. So this one actually extends that graph. It doesn't compress it, it just widens it further. So yes, you always divide by the given coefficient. You don't have to change it. Good question.
Okay, so I think we've got a minute left. I don't even know if we can get through another question.
Let's go through another question. We'll
Should
do it
we?
quick.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Let me have a look. Oh no, now my Facebook is being very slow now. Okay, we've got, let me see. We've done how do we find the range and domain. Okay, so Cabello says, oh no. Capello says, Indy, you're so funny when you pronounce names. That's terrible. I know. I am learning, and I am going to get better. I think Dina, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. We'll just finish off here.
Yeah.
We've just looked at cos a half x. What would it look like? It would do the same thing. Minimum and maximum, but this minimum would now be at 360. It's always halfway, and the 0 would be at 180, and that one would be on 180 onto there, so that would be 540. So that would be my CARS graph. It would just stretch horizontally, not stretch vertically, and this would be y equals CARS a half x. I will leave everybody to try out what does y equals tan 2x look like, what does y equals tan a half x look like. We haven't even gone there, but it's the same process. Period of tan is 180, so if you divide by 2, now have a period of 90 with that asymptote. Don't forget that. Enjoy sketching.
Okay, guys, that comes into our show. Thank you so much for such an awesome one. I had such a fun time. I was just laughing so much at where was this earlier. Cabello also says he's a very funny guy. Thanks to Liberty for keeping the lights on. Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you so much, grade 11s, grade 12s here next. See you same time, same place next week. Bye, guys.